Hello and welcome back to the channel, and to the first issue of a new series I'm calling Random Comic Review. Simply put, I'll be taking one random comic from my collection, and we'll take a look at that comic together. In addition, we'll discuss some hopefully interesting facts about the characters, creators, publisher, and the historical context around the issue. Our first subject will be Captain Victory and the Galactic Rangers, number 3, published by Pacific Comics in 1982. This series was created, written, and drawn by someone who needs no introduction to comic book fans, Jack Kirby, with letters and inking by Michael Thibodeau. And this issue also features a backup story featuring the character of Ms. Mystic by Neil Adams. Jack Kirby began his comics career in the golden age of comics starting in 1936. His most famous creation from that time is probably Captain America, which he co-created with Joe Simon for Timely Comics in 1941. Jack served his country during World War II between 1943 and 1945. He returned to his comics career after the war, and in the 1950s he did work for both DC and Atlas Comics. In 1961, Jack was one of the founders of the Marvel Universe, co-creating much of what we know in the Marvel Universe today, including the Fantastic Four, Thor, the Avengers, and the X-Men. During this time, he also brought back his Golden Age creation, Captain America, in the pages of the Avengers. Jack, together with Stan Lee, created an unprecedented run of comics with Fantastic Four number 1 to 102. A run which included the creation of Galactus, the Silver Surfer, Black Panther, the Inhumans, the Kree, the Skrull, the return of the Golden Age character Namor the Submariner to the modern Marvel Universe, and so much more. In 1970, unhappy with the treatment he was receiving at Marvel, Jack struck a deal with rival DC Comics, a move that was a huge story in the comics industry of the time. During his time at DC, Jack created Kamandi, the Last Boy on Earth, the Demon Etrigan, OMAC, the One-Man Army Corps, but his biggest contribution to the legacy of DC was the creation of the Fourth World of the New Gods, and the ongoing battle between the good New Gods of New Genesis, led by Highfather and Orion, and the evil forces of Apocalypse, led by Darkseid. Unfortunately, Jack's creations at DC did not have the staying power that his creations at Marvel did, and in 1976, Jack returned to Marvel. During 1976 and 1978, Jack worked on Black Panther, Captain America and the Falcon, Marvel's adaptation and continuation of the film 2001: A Space Odyssey, and he created the cosmic saga of the Eternals, as well as the prehistoric adventures of Devil Dinosaur and Moon Boy. Jack left comics for a time and entered the world of animation. During that time, he worked for Hanna-Barbera as well as Ruby Spears. Jack's most memorable creations from his time in animation, at least to me, was his work on the series Thundar the Barbarian for Ruby Spears. While Alex Toth created the character designs for the lead characters of Thundar, Ookla, and Ariel, Jack created the villains and much of the world building in the series. In 1981, Jack returned to comics, but not to Marvel or DC. Jack struck one of the first creator-owned deals with fledgling Pacific Comics. Rather than going back to doing work for hire, Jack now owns the characters he was creating for Pacific. His first book, Captain Victory and the Galactic Rangers, lasted for 13 issues and one special. And he also created a 6-issue series called Silver Star. During that time in the early 80s, Jack was one of many creators who were leaving Marvel and DC to do creator-owned work at new publishers like Pacific Comics, First Comics, Eclipse, and Comico. With comic book sales moving away from newsstands and into the growing direct market of comic book shops, there were many opportunities for writers and artists to do their own creator-owned work. I think in many ways the rise of the direct market in the early 80s and the growth of independent publishers paved the way to what we'd see in the 90s with the formation of Image Comics. Unfortunately, Pacific Comics didn't last long, and by 1984 the publisher had gone out of business. Jack Kirby returned to DC for a time to create the comics that would tie in with the Superpowers toy line. In the 90s, Jack would strike a deal with new publisher Topps Comics, the trading card company that was getting into comic book publishing, and they would create the Kirbyverse shortly before Jack's death in 1994. Let's take a look at the cover first. To save our Earth, he dared to seize the Mother of Horrors in defense of our galaxy, Captain Victory and the Galactic Rangers. And we can see this sold for $1 back in 1982, which was a premium price back then. And you won't see a Kirby cover that's not dynamic here. We see a giant monster crashing through the wall, and this is our hero, Captain Victory. And Jack sort of gravitated toward these heroes with long blonde hair, like Thor, Commandy, Icarus of the Eternals, and Captain Victory continues that tradition. And here's a little bit of Ms. Mystic by Neil Adams in the corner. Alright, let's get into it. Inside the front cover we have an in-house ad with the next issue of Captain Victory, as well as the other big title at PC Pacific Comics published at that time, which was Star Slayer by Mike Grell, who came from DC. He had a big run on the Warlord, as well as, I believe, Green Lantern and Green Arrow. There's also a subscription coupon here for 6 issues of Star Slayer or Captain Victory, or both. Star Slayer only lasted 6 issues at Pacific Comics before it went to another publisher. And then, of course, Captain Victory only lasted for 13 issues. So we have a little blurb here to catch us up. The Insectons have landed on Earth. They are a ruthless, implacable force with the instinct to conquer. Each minute that passes bears grim new evidence of their plan to stay. But win or lose, we are not without Captain Victory and his Galactic Rangers. If nothing else, Kirby knew how to craft a dramatic story. So here we see our heroes checking out what seems to be a hive that's been built by the Insectons. Here's another full panel page and some conversation to introduce us to the characters. So we have Captain Victory here, his second in command, Major Clavis. This is Taran, who is a lion man, and Orca, who is a fish man. So those are the members of the Galactic Rangers. And they're interacting with the local sheriff here, trying to figure out what to do with this Insecton hive that's shown up on Earth. And that transitions to this big double-page spread. So here we have Captain Victory contacting his ship, which is the Dreadnought Tiger. And he's sending orders for an attack. And here you can see some patented Kirby technology. This is what Kirby science looks like. Very much based in fantasy. All these sort of squiggly lines and circles and just patented Kirby right here. And this is a nice job by the colorist Steve Oliff to kind of make sense of all these different lines and squiggles. And we can see the light infantry of the Galactic Rangers getting ready to head down to the surface of the planet. Here's what the ship looks like, the Dreadnought Tiger. Also very Kirby-inspired technology there. We have one of Captain Victory's people urging him to get out of the hive before they get captured. But apparently some Earthlings have been captured by the Insectons, so Captain Victory and his crew are determined to rescue them. And it seems here that Major Clavis has found them, and that they have been turned into bloated sacks of fluid. Oh, that's charming. The sheriff comes in and stumbles on the scene, and he's obviously horrified. And then we got another full-page panel giving us our first look at the Insectons. Kirby's character designs are always very ornate. There's a lot going on. This does remind me, though, of Mantis from the New Gods, who was also an insect-based creature. So the light infantry lands on Earth to destroy the hive, and then we have another character coming in here, who we learn is called the Super Genius. Out of my way, soldier boys, I can swash and buckle with the best of you. Kind of a funny little character. Looks like Humpty Dumpty in some kind of hover chair or something. Kind of reminds me of MODOK. Apparently he snuck aboard to join the invasion and he gets chastised on the next page by Captain Victory. You cannot be risked in a combat situation. You know that you're officially listed as a cosmic enigma. Now we finally meet our main villain, who is the Lightning Lady. She is apparently the queen of the hive. And she decides to release this giant monster to attack the Galactic Rangers. For weeks, I've poured life energy into his gestation chamber. I've given him one directive: to kill, kill! And now we see the Galactic Rangers attacking the hive. Zam, zam! And no matter what Kirby drew, it was always dramatic, whether it was an explosion, or firing weapons with the light effects here, or even close-ups on faces. Kirby would often do close-ups of characters' eyes like this to convey emotion and drama. And then we have the giant monster coming up to attack the Galactic Rangers, with Captain Victory instructing them to fire at its jaws. Smack in the middle of the book, we get the letters page. Remember when people used to write letters into comic books? Voices of Victory was the title of their letters page. What's interesting here is we get a letter from a writer called T.M. Maple. T.M. Maple was a Canadian by the name of Jim Burke. Between 1977 and 1994, he wrote more than 3,000 letters to comic book publishers. At first, he signed the letters as the Mad Maple, but Marvel Comics implemented a policy to not print any letters with pseudonyms. So because he still wanted to print the Mad Maple's letters, editor Tom DeFalco abbreviated it to T.M. Maple to make it seem like a real name, and that pseudonym stuck. Unfortunately, Jim Burke passed away of a heart attack in 1994. But it's always fun to go through these old issues and see if there's a letter there by T.M. Maple. Back to the action. This giant insect is kind of going through the Galactic Rangers like a knife through butter here, and they're trying to stand their ground. And in these panels we can see something called the Kirby Crackle. Whenever Jack depicted energy surges like this, he did so with these series of circles, and over time that's been dubbed the Kirby Crackle. So that little egg guy, Mr. Mind the Super Genius, found a way to defeat the creature by freezing it, and he explains to Captain Victory, his condition is purely psychosomatic. I merely switched his thoughts from murder to cosmic temperatures at a fascinating ultimate. Which kind of makes no sense, but that's Kirby dialogue for you. Often I find that when Kirby writes his own dialogue for his characters, sometimes it's very confusing and stilted, but I guess Kirby understood what it meant. So while Captain Victory continues to chastise Mr. Mind for being on the field of battle, his men go further into the hive and get attacked once again. The Insectons here attacking the Galactic Rangers definitely look very similar to the Parademons from the New Gods. And when Captain Victory, Mr. Mind, and Clavis go to confront the Lightning Lady, they find that she has a bunch of children taken hostage. And I think this was one of Kirby's weaknesses, is drawing children, because all the faces on his children look very strange. They all look like kind of little adults rather than actual children. So to rescue the children, Mr. Mind plays a mind trick on her, appropriately enough, to make her see a monster instead of children. So that causes her to let go. Captain Victory grabs the Lightning Lady, and he carries her away so she can't use her lightning powers to hurt the kids. So apparently the kids are safe, still looking very weird. But even without the Lightning Lady to lead them, the Insecton troops try to go after the kids again. So Mr. Mind apparently teleports them all away. Which begs the question, if he could teleport, why did he stow away on that ship to begin with? But there you go. So Victory still has the Lightning Lady. His men are trying to fight off the rest of the Insectons. And then at the end of the issue, it looks like the army shows up. What in hell is going on down here? And Captain Victory thinks to himself, native troops. That can only mean one thing, the fighting airborne, whatever that means. That's the blurb for the next issue, to be continued. So as you can see, there was no ads in that issue like there were in regular newsstand comics. With the direct market, they really didn't have anything besides in-house ads in the comics. So a lot of the time they were backup stories to supplement the main stories, since the main stories didn't go the full length of the issue. So in this case, we have a backup story from Neil Adams for his character, his creator-owned character, Ms. Mystic. And there's an in-house blurb here saying that Ms. Mystic will be coming in her own title later in 1982. And this backup story is meant to introduce her. So on the first page, we have a bunch of apparently asshole hunters who think it's cool to kill an endangered bald eagle, which they do. 38 miles away, the tranquility of a gentle creature is disturbed. Rage fills her to the core. She calls upon the water to raise her to a place from which she can see better. Into the clear sky rises the form of Ms. Mystic. So apparently Ms. Mystic is somehow connected to nature. She's maybe a protector of the earth. And she is apparently very pissed off about the hunters killing this eagle. First, she uses what appears to be a sword of light to cut the hunter's gun in half. Then she scoops him up and transforms him into a part man, part bird. Now she's forcing him to fly across the sky, where they fly over another group of hunters who start shooting at him. And he's pleading with her. They want to kill me. They don't care to look to see what I am. I'm a man. I have children. Listen to me, you blind fools. You don't know what you're doing. Stop and think. Now she brings him back and transforms him back to human form. There's an officer there. This man has been kidnapped and assaulted by you, young lady. Will you submit to arrest? And she asks, will he prefer charges? And he says, no, no charges. Now Ms. Mystic asks the officer, and now will you arrest Mr. Egan for killing a bald eagle? And he says, I'll take him to the game warden. Then the officer asks why she doesn't pursue real criminals with her powers. The real criminals are those who, through malice and ignorance or stupidity, destroy, degrade, misuse, pollute, and consume all the bounty that this world has provided. But it is not they who suffer from their acts, but their and your children who will live in this polluted world. So obviously Ms. Mystic is sort of a more heavy-handed Captain Planet type character. And she uses tactics not unlike DC's The Spectre to teach people a lesson for their evil deeds. And then we have a full-page black and white ad by Mike Grell for Star Slayer #2. And on the back cover, instead of an ad, we have a little stinger for a future issue. Don't miss a single chapter in the Captain Victory saga. It may be the portent of things to come. Where will you be when the aliens land? And we see some Insectons and some enslaved humans under mind control. So that's it for my look at this issue of Captain Victory and the Galactic Rangers. I wouldn't say it's among Kirby's best work, but if you're a Jack Kirby fan, this has all the Kirbyisms you would come to expect from a Jack Kirby book. Also an interesting look at what was going on in the comics industry at that time, with both sales shifting from newsstands to the direct market, and also the rise of creator-owned comics and creators working outside the confines of just Marvel and DC. It's also fascinating to think that at almost 50 years in the comics industry at that point, that this was Jack Kirby's first creator-owned work. Now, one footnote about this series is that Jack made this a stealth sequel to his Fourth World Saga. In the final issue of this series, Jack portrayed Captain Victory's origin, and it was strongly suggested that Captain Victory was the son of Orion of the New Gods. So that's it for the first issue of Random Comic Review. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.